When I hear paranormal stuff, when I hear the word, when I hear it being discussed as a topic, I can't help but be like, I live the most miserable and sad existence ever because I cannot tell you that I have had experiences that are paranormal. I haven't seen any creatures that I couldn't explain or I couldn't recognize. I haven't seen things moving on their own outside of I put something really close to the edge, the weight shifted and it fell without me touching it. Stuff like that. All of the experiences I have with paranormal experiences are anecdotes that others have shared with me. And I'm not saying that I don't believe them, that I dismiss whatever it is that they say. It's just one of those things that, as you guys know from knowing me on this channel and the load of content I have put out based off my opinion and feelings on things, you would know that there's a lot of things that I can relate to people with, but paranormal shit is something that I cannot tell you I have anything to share. I have never seen anything glowing. I have never seen anything flying in ways that any of our inventions can mechanically perform. None of that. So ultimately, over the years, I have been thinking about it, discussing it with some people, and even listening to the opinions of professionals on this matter. Professionals meaning people who are professors of certain studies, like, say, religious, anthropology, things like that. And I think what has convinced me the most, that ultimately makes me adopt this as my strongest conclusion and the opinion that I am going to hold on to forever, is that I think paranormal activity is mostly a shared collective, a shared memory, a shared experience. Someone who has a degree of religious beliefs, meaning that I have always been agnostic, but I have always believed in something beyond what we see or even what we're able to comprehend. When it comes to sight, we do have limitations, the spectrum of light that is actually visible to us. I think that paranormal activity may be something that might be supported more by how people share their anecdotes so much before something like that could be investigated, answered properly, all that type of thing. And as a result, we, through our stories, through our anecdotes, maintain that paranormal activity alive. And something that I've been meaning to research, but I just keep forgetting, and I'm remembering now that I cannot do something about it because I'm making the video. I want to look up what were people observing in the skies before our technological innovations, before planes, before spaceships, before missiles, before things like that. What did people see in the skies outside of stars, planets, the sun, comets? Did they ever observe any kind of traffic in the sky? Anything flying that's not biologically capable of doing it, such as avians? What did people see in the heavens before we had all these technological advances? Were UFO sightings a thing before technology that can go up in the air as we know it? Before kites, before anything crazy, anything that's man-made? What did people see? And when it comes to other kinds of paranormal activity, such as the stories of elves that come out at nighttime and maybe chased out wildlife or horses, or you could hear them giggling and laughing, and people swear that they physically saw that they physically heard it, and it was more than one person. How can more than one person fake it? Again, maybe it's because you, as someone who has been a resident of that area, and that is the legend that you have been fed, your mind can begin to accept it as true. You ever hear a story that is a giant lie, a giant fraud? Notice that I'm saying giant. It is so big that it is impossible to accept that everything that you knew about this lie could have been fake. Let's take, for instance, the cases of charities that turn out to be fraudulent. Nobody was questioning it, everything seemed good, but suddenly when you uncover it, you're like, this is such a big fraud that you refuse to believe it wasn't real from the start. For something like that, say the stories of haunted ships, haunted hotel rooms, haunted houses, I look at it as if you were to take someone who is not a local and someone who does not speak the language of the local haunted place, what would happen? What would the manifestations be? For instance, let's say that in here, given that this land saw so much bloodshed, so much suffering, so many dark, negative things, and this all happened, let's presume, exclusively in the English language, just to make it simpler. I know that there were French people, there were the Dutch, there were the Spaniards. Forget that. Let's just limit it to English for the sake of simplicity. And let's say that you take someone from, I don't know, China, someone completely unrelated to the matters that were taking place here back in those colonial times that we're familiar with. Their numbers were either small to non-existent. I don't know accurately. I'm just saying that based off the history that prevails the most, that population was very low, or maybe we didn't have them. What if one of them came over here and we exposed them to those haunted places? They don't know the language, they don't know the place, they're unfamiliar with this territory, they don't know the culture. Would they still pick up on those vibes, that energy? Would they still hear the things that we hear, see the things that we see, feel on their skin the things that we feel? Or is this all invented? For instance, you see an abandoned house, completely run down, weeds all over it, it's dirty on the outside, it's always dark. You're going to walk into it and be like, I feel something weird. I feel something is watching me. Because in the background, you may have the influence of movies. You usually see something that looks like this, and there's usually some assassin hiding there somewhere. Or there's usually some kind of plague, some kind of disease, some kind of crazy animal, some mutant, anything at all. That's already fucking with your brain. That's already distorting your perception of this place. Who's to say that if you go to that home as someone who hasn't seen movies like that, hasn't heard scary stories like that, doesn't speak the local language, doesn't know about the local landscape, doesn't know about the history of this place you're at, would they still experience that same reaction? And another example I guess we could think of is whenever you hear stories of possessed things, possessed people, again, I don't want to dismiss it. I don't want to reduce the experience and things that people may have witnessed or may have heard. But how are those things any different from just a regular mental breakdown? That is the part that I'm not understanding. That's the part I have trouble getting behind. And I guess it's because as someone who doesn't really have friends like that, and I'm not really that tight with my family, and even the things that my family told me, the stories they told me when I grew up, I learned that they were bullshit. What do we do with that info? I think, again, that paranormal activity can live and it can exist because people keep it alive. And if you want to go even crazier, let's take religion. Religion is able to continue to exist and be alive and feel real because we have studied it, we have read it, we have heard of it, other people have told us about it, we have congregated to explore this in more depth. We have that in common. But if you were to detach from those things, detach from those people, detach from those influences, detach from the matter entirely, what would happen to you? Would you continue to have the same belief, the same level of faith, the same level of following, fidelity, devotion, dedication to that matter. If you didn't have those resources backing you up, what would a person who was born without influence from people, influence from culture, religion, language, all of that, what would we actually do? What would our instinct be? And I think that religion, for instance, is something that became organized so that people could better control those urges that naturally recur within us. In other words, be complete savages, act like animals out here, operating on instinct. We were able to take our capabilities and organize them. Our ability to touch, hold, grasp, throw, we refined those. We became experts because we had people who began to dedicate at doing that type of thing. We had the people who became good climbers. We had the people who became good diggers, good swimmers. You name it. Someone had the time to dedicate and become good at that. Language, sounds. Someone was able to whistle. Someone was able to move the lips in this motion and fashion. And they said, well, if we structure it like this, organize it like this, pitch it up like this, or make it sound like this. It all has a meaning. Let's assign a meaning. Someone had the time to structure that, recruit other people to accept this and practice it and keep spreading it and spreading it and sharing it and sharing it. And that's how we obtained this. And eventually people started messing with their hair. And eventually people started messing with products that they saw, like animal fur and plant material and whatever else, to start producing clothes and start tying it up in certain ways and certain patterns and create designs and everything. You know what I'm trying to say. Basically, the refinement in people with their materials that led to the things that exist now that we can take advantage of. Someone had time to see patterns and geometry and do math, and now we have buildings and structures and we can calculate that stuff. Again, organization, refinement of things. If we stopped doing those things, what would we believe in? What would happen to all of those beliefs? From what I've been gathering, characters from the Bible, especially Jesus, there doesn't seem to be an exact evidence that an individual exactly like him existed, in the same manner that there is no evidence to disprove his existence, that he indeed did not exist, that he was never real, or something like that. It seems like every religion, every civilization that was advanced in ancient times has their story of a leader, their version of a Jesus. So, what does that tell you? That at some point, someone had to emerge through the ranks of civilization as they had it back in those days, and then this person became the leader, and then another person had to inherit the beliefs and system of this leader and force it to evolve, because the next leader is going to have differences, it's going to be different. And as much as you try to preserve the tradition, there's going to be a variable that's going to change at some point. So all in all, I took the time to express all that and describe all that, so that maybe you can see why someone like me may struggle. It doesn't help that I don't go out much anyway. It doesn't help that I don't really associate myself with that many people. But maybe because I don't, because those are my circumstances, I may be one of those people who can look at this a little bit more objectively. And maybe that's why I don't have trouble with being disappointed when something too good to be true doesn't turn out to be real. And I know a lot of people who, when you start questioning their religion, asking questions about their religion, being skeptical about stories, characters, people, powers, things like that, they get very defensive. They get very offended. They're not prepared to maybe hear a truth that counters this thing that they put a lot of faith in. I'm not telling you stop doing that. That is the magic that keeps you going, the magic that inspires you and motivates you and keeps you going. Fantastic, great. I am so happy for you. I can say that I have my own version of that, my own elements like that. But I'm just saying, if someone starts to question me and my beliefs, the many times that people have asked me, how is it that you're a believer if you're so driven by science? Or how is it that you can still believe even if you haven't personally seen anything with your own eyes and things? And I defend my point, but I also don't try to discourage that other person from questioning me, from asking me, because it is through that questioning and through those questions that are very specific to that person asking that force me to rethink some things, that I become confident about what I believe in. Those are the things that reinforce me as a person, my thoughts, my beliefs. And some people who get very defensive by it, sometimes I worry about them because I look at it as, you appear to be someone very subjective. You're very easy to influence, manipulate, impress. And I, as someone who tries to be as objective as possible, and I'm very difficult to impress, difficult to influence, and that type of thing, and you need to produce evidence for me, you have your personality, which your personality will lead you to experience certain things. You will be susceptible to things. My experience, being objective, being pretty much never subjective, being nearly impossible to influence or affect, it's going to lead me to be, react, think, say, see, feel, hear certain things that you won't. So how about if we just get together and take each other's best features, do something with that, our worst features, address them, and just exist like that, as opposed to trying to live competing with, my account is more compelling because I have seen, I have heard, I have been to, blah, blah, blah. Or say on my side, I could be like, well, I haven't done that because I haven't done that and haven't seen anything. It can't be real because if this were real, it would haunt me at nighttime. It would appear when I'm driving. It would do A, B, C, and D. Don't try to compete with each other's experiences. Look at it as, okay, you have your paranormal experiences that you didn't get to confirm or something. I don't have them. Therefore, I don't have anything to confirm. But if you want to recruit me, and I'll go with you to the site of your paranormal experience, and maybe something will come out and I can look at it with you. It feels like paranormal shit happens depending on who's there. There's one person who just cannot be left alone. But then there's another person who you try to show them shit, and shit never happens. And to finalize, a cemetery. A lot of people are freaked out by cemeteries at nighttime. I would be a little bit uneasy about it because I understand that cemeteries are the resting place of dead people. And even though dead people are rotting away just like everything ever that is organic and dies, I still want to look at the cemeteries as spooky places because I have seen the movies. I have seen the shows where there's always something lurking there, the bad guys and everything. But you know what else? If I take real life experiences, I can look at it as, who's to say that in the dark at cemeteries, there isn't someone with ill intent, someone real, living, breathing right now, who has weapons, and they're waiting for someone to make the mistake of going in there, that zone that you're not familiar with at nighttime. You're not equipped to defend yourself. They come out and they mess with you. That is real. That is an objective way to look at what makes a cemetery spooky. Your senses are not at top condition because you can't see as well. You may not be able to defend yourself as well. There may not be a lot of people around. There's no company there. Those things make you more vulnerable. So why would you do that? Whereas in the daytime, cemeteries feel completely different. There's daylight. There's more than likely going to be someone around. And you may be better suited for a situation in which you have to react with urgency or defensiveness. I guess your version of being intimidated by cemeteries as someone who's influenced by paranormal things, I can say I'm influenced by the fact that I know there's evil out there, and I know that evil likes to hide and come out when you're defenseless. Why would I expose myself to a potentially perilous situation when it's perfectly avoidable by me not being present in that place where bad shit can happen? Or at this haunted house, if you start announcing that there's going to be an expedition to this haunted house, who's to say that those evil people aren't going to hear about this, station themselves there, and cause issues the day of the visit? That is an objective way of looking at things. Whereas the subjective way of looking at things, I look at it as, well, bad shit has been cited and announced at that place, but you leave it at that. You really don't try to find out what it is that made that place evil in the first place. That's it from me on this one. That's my opinion. I don't have any experiences to share. Just because I'm not trying to say that anybody else's experiences to me are null and void. I still want to respect it and acknowledge it. I'm just saying that even before I realized that I have had zero experiences, I have been aware of what influences the mind. What you inherit, the stories you hear, your education, the way that you're influenced by media, music, movies, all that. Those are little seeds being planted on your brain. And sometimes you get so good at learning, adapting the facts of the fiction to your real life that maybe it gets distorted in your brain. And I guess that's why I, maybe as someone objective, had trouble enjoying fictional works for the longest time, because I don't like to waste time on things that aren't building me up, things that I don't find educational. Fictional things, if I allow myself to focus on an opportunity to be simply plainly entertained, fine. But the problem with fiction is that it often takes elements from real life to incorporate into their stories to hold on to our attention. Like, say, Disney movies. Disney movies usually have a theme that accompany them. You know the story is fictional. Like I was saying the other night about Tarzan, you know this is fictional, but it has elements from real life, such as emotions, experiences, clashes. At what point is that fiction exclusively fiction and it doesn't seep into your real life? That's how I see paranormal things. I think that paranormal stuff is fiction, but it exists because it takes elements from real life and people keep it alive through their faith, their language, whatever education they may have, whether limited or enhanced on this topic, those little things. You guys, please let me know. Feel free to tell me anything that you want. I'm not going to be offended, even if you come at me for my religion or lack thereof, because I don't have my religion defined. I feel like my religion is little bits and pieces of every religion, but that doesn't have a name. It's kind of like cherry picking, but the reason I have trouble with religion is because I look at it as a very manipulative book, a manipulative entity. I don't know what word to use, but look at it this way. I, as a woman, am a living, breathing human being who can suffer, experience joy, excitement, frustration, disappointments, create things, make things, cook things, all those things. But in books like this, I'm told that I cannot be a preacher, that I cannot own property, that it's all these social constructs I cannot take a part in because I'm different. And in some places, I'm not even acknowledged as an equal, as a person. I'm thought of as an animal. And I'm like, I am as animalistic as you are animalistic as a man, because we're both the same species. You're simply designed a little bit differently because you have to be for certain things to be possible, such as procreation. But when I see documentation making one side superior to the other, that's when I get pissed off. And that's why religions can disappoint me in some places, because I'm like, this religion to me, it looks like something that was invented to edify a group of people who fucking needed it to get something done. You needed to be elevated while others needed to be bullied into submission. I hate that. That is disgusting. So fuck yeah, I'm going to sit here and question it and have my reservations and cherry pick through some of those values, and I will calibrate it to where it serves me adequately, as opposed to blindly following everything that is in there. Because I know that if I blindly follow it as it is, there's going to be some feelings of deprivation, anger, resentment, frustration. I'll be lashing out and rebellious, and a lot of negative things can come out. It is up to me to keep it a positive thing. It's one of those things that I have to refine my thoughts on, and maybe on another topic present it a little better. But just so you know, that's why I cannot just blindly accept any kind of, I guess, doctrine out there. There is always something questionable about everything. And I think that the most important thing we can do as beings that can reason is question the fuck out of everything. Why not? Anyways, you guys, I'm gonna leave it here. Bye.